Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the last class, we installed Maven and JDK, right? And we also discussed about the project structure, right? So go to any Java-based project. So this is how the project structure looks like. So you see a root folder with your project name, Flipkart. Under this, there will be a directory called SRC. Then under SRC, you see main and then test, correct? Under main, there will be one more folder called Java. Here also Java. Under Java, you see group ID. Here also group ID. And under this, you see a lot of .java files. Under this group ID, you see a lot of .java files. Correct? .java. So the main application code goes here. For example, you have 100 Java files. These .java files are related to main application. And these 100 .java files are related to unit testing code. So testing code goes under test folder. The main application code goes under main folder. That's what we discussed, correct? Okay. And under Flipkart, you see SRC and then another file called pom.xml file. Under pom.xml file, we write configurations. We write build and deployment related configurations. That's how the project or any software source code structure looks like. Okay. We don't need to worry too much about this. It's a development teams who creates that folder structure, right? And they know how to store, all those things. They know, the structure and stuff like that. So our job is to see mostly what we do. We'll just, blindly, clone the repositories usually. So this is our var file, right? Environment. So usually what we do, so they push the code, we take the code, we build the var file and then we deploy it. So most of the times we just blindly, download the code and then we build it. But if you can remember the project structure, right, that's kind of, that'll be good. So that'll help you to troubleshoot and, fix the issues quickly. So here we have the source code in Git, correct? This is your repository, right? Repository. Inside the repository, we have source code. Now, you know how the source code structure looks like, correct? Tell me, what is the root folder? Flipkart. Under Flipkart, what is there? SRC. Under SRC, you see main, you see test. And here you have pom.xml file. Under main, blah, 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 some folders. And then here you see a lot of .java files. Under test also, you see a lot of .java files. So that's how the source code structure looks like in Git. Clear now, the project structure? So once they push the code to the Git, what do? We clone it, correct? We clone it. When we clone, we get the same source code here. So here I'll get Flipkart, SRC, and then I'll get the main, then I'll get test folder, blah, 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 some directories, and then here some .java files, here some .java files. And then here I have pom.xml file. Correct? So once we clone, we get this in our laptop. This is DevOps U, correct? So once we clone this, what do? We call Maven, correct, for build. Recall Maven. So what is the command we use for building this project? So once we clone, as a second step, we execute a command called mvn install here. What's it? Mvn install. Mvn install. Very simple. See, you clone the project, okay? And then just run this command. What's that command? Mvn install. So this command will compile all .java files for you. Which one? This one. It will compile the main code, testing code, everything. And finally, it will create a var file for you. Var file. We call this as what? Build, correct? So who is building the application? It is Maven. So clone, remember, clone the first step. You just need to execute this command, mn install. This mn install command will create this. Your job is done. Correct? Clone, run mn install, that will give you var file. So now you know how to clone the code. Fine. Then what is the second step you do? Running the command called mvn install, right? This command, right? What happens when you execute mvn install? You should learn that. Correct? Hope everybody is clear with that. I'm repeating multiple times, right? Think that you are working as a DevOps engineer in Flipkart only. Your manager comes to your desk, says, "This is your first day. Can you do a sample build and deployment?" You ask your manager, "Okay, fine, I'll do. Give me the repository URL." Somebody will give you repository URL, you clone it. The moment you clone, you get the application code. And then what is the second step you do? You will just go to the cloned source code. You run this command, mvn install. What that will give you? Var file. So what happens when you execute mvn install? So when I download the code, I get this code from the repository, correct? I get this code. So I have to execute mvn install here. So I'll go to this Flipkart directory and then I'll run a command called mvn install. So in this Flipkart directory, I run a command called mvn install. Here install has a different meaning, okay? Don't think about, that installation, like installing some softwares. Here install means it's a different. So what happens when I execute this mvn install command here? Correct? Clone, I run mvn install. So the moment you run mvn install here, mvn means Maven, correct? So we are telling Maven, "Hello Maven, please execute this command." So Maven will do a lot of things for you and then it will create the war file. So what Maven will do the moment you execute this command? Maven will first execute a step called compile. Compile. Then it will execute another step called test compile. Test compile. Then it will go on and execute another step called test. You call them as a phase, or you call them as steps, or you call them as targets. Then it will execute something called package step. And then it will execute another step called install. See what Maven is doing? The moment, see, at a very high level, you are running only one command. You are running only one command. So you just say mvn install. It is doing a lot of things internally for us. It is executing compile phase, test compile, test package install. So what's happening here? What's happening here? Simple. It will go and then call this step. You call them as targets or phases. Targets are phases are steps. Compile target, test compile target, test target, package target, install phase, package phase, and so on. We call them as target or phases. Right. So the moment you run this command here, this is your laptop, right? Once you clone, you'll run this command. The moment you run that command in your laptop, it will first execute compile phase, compile target. During this particular step or target, you know what Maven does? It compiles main code. Main code. Are we manually compiling anything? No, it is Maven, right? So it will go and then compile all these .java files. If you have 1,000 .java files, it will compile all 1,000 .java files for us. Run, done. Then it will move to the second phase called test compile. During this phase, what it will do? It will go and then compile all testing.java files. What happens during this phase? Maven compiles test code. See what Maven is doing. That is called as an automation, correct? And then it will go to another phase called test. Another step, step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. During this phase, it will execute the test cases. It will execute test cases and generates reports. Generates reports. Yesterday, I explained this. Calculator.java. And to test this calculator.java, people write calculator test.java, correct? This is here. This is here, correct? So calculator.java, calculator test.java. Why developer writes this calculator test.java? You execute this code, this will go and then test this code, correct? See this. Assume that you have calculator.java here, calculator test.java here. See what Maven is doing? In first phase, what it will do? It will compile calculator.java. Compilation is done. Correct? It compiles the main code, right? During test compile, what will happen? It will compile calculator test.java. During this phase, what's happening? It executes the code. See, you got the class file of this here during first phase. You got the class file of this during the second phase. Now, third phase, what's happening there? It executes the class file. So the moment you run this particular file, it will call this, it will test it, and it will generate the report. How many test cases you have. I explained about the addition, right? So whether the addition test case is passing or not, how many test cases you have, right? And then how many of them have failed, how many are passed, and so on. So there will be a report. When that report will be executed? Here. So before it runs the code, right? You need to have a class file, right? So during compile, class files are there. During test compile, these class files are there. Now the class files are there, and then you can execute the class files, and then it will generate the report. So during test phase, it will execute the testing code, and then it generates the reports. During test phase, what's happening? You are executing the test code, and then it generates the reports. That's called automation. See how many things Maven is doing internally for us. Are we compiling code manually? This code manually? Are we generating the reports manually? No. You just tell Maven, hello Maven, run this command. It does all these things for us internally. Maven is a build tool. And what is the main goal here? What is the main goal? Tell me, what is the main goal of build? What is the main thing? What is the outcome that we expect? What is the main thing here?
Warfel.
Warfare.
Yes. The purpose of build is to have the war file, binaries. If you have the war file, you can launch the application from it, correct? Okay. Then it will go to package phase. Here, it will create, Maven creates jar or war file. Sometimes we create only jars, sometimes we create var file. You will understand that later, okay? You'll understand when we create only jar and when we create var file. This is package. Okay. So var file is created. Then it will go to another phase. During install phase, what it will do, the jar or var file is created, right? Correct? It will copy, for example, that jar or var file to your user home and then .m2 directory. So once you run Maven creates a directory called .m2 locally in your user home. /home/Harry. If you go there will be a folder called .m2. It will copy this var file to this directory. Why? We'll discuss later. See how many things Maven is handling here. This is called as an automation. So you clone the code, you just run this command, Maven install, you will get var file. That's all. What happens? Okay. This is a very popular interview question. Hardly you get questions in Maven in your interviews, DevOps interviews. Because a lot of things in Maven will be usually done by the developers only. Most of the times we just go and then execute this command blindly. And the Maven install command does all these things for us. So a lot of automation, build related automation will be done by the developers only. Okay, like we don't know, right? How many compiles need to be, which jar file need to be compiled, right? Which class file needs to go in the which jar file and things like that. So forget about it. I'll explain that later. So this is a very popular question. Now, very rarely people ask the questions in Maven because we don't do much in Maven. But if at all they ask, this is the first question they ask. What happens when I execute Maven install? You have to explain. The moment I run Maven install, it'll execute a compiled target. During this target, it will compile the main code. Then it will execute test compile target. Okay, you have to remember the names. And during test compile target, Maven will compile testing code. Then test, it generates the reports. It executes the code and then it generates the reports. So we'll be having how many test cases we have, how many pass, how many fail, and things like that. Then it will create the jar or var file, and then it copies jar or var file to local user home .m2 directory. Just explain that. Okay. Actually what happens? We clone this Flipkart, right? We clone this code here. So in Flipkart directory only, we execute this install command. Okay. So the moment you execute install inside the Flipkart, install first reads the pom.xml file first. Since it is 1, I'll call it the 0 step. Okay. What it will do? It will first execute the pom.xml file for us. Here, I told you we will be having a build configurations in the sense how build should happen. So all those configurations we do here. We write in XML format. For example, I want to tell Maven. So this is me, right? This is me. This is Maven. Like I mentioned in last class, I want to tell Maven, hello Maven, don't compile the testing code. Hello Maven, don't generate the reports. Hello Maven, don't create the var file. I want you to create only the jar file. How do you communicate to Maven? How do we communicate to Maven? How do we communicate to Maven? We write our demands in XML format here. You write your demands here. Maven reads your demands. Accordingly, it will execute all the stuff. So the moment you execute a main install command, it first reads the pom.xml file. For example, simple thing, okay? Here I have given the jar. Jar. How you write that XML, we'll learn that later. So the moment you run a min install, it will read the pom.xml file. It knows now, okay, this guy is asking me to create the jar file, not var file. So it will come here. It compiles the main code, testing code, generates the reports. It comes here. So it will get only the jar file. It will not get the var file. How it knows whether it has to get the jar or var file? Based on this configuration. For example, I don't want to compile the testing code, generate the reports. Say, for example, I can configure that here. Don't do this, don't do this. The moment you run min install, it will first read pom.xml file. It comes here, it compiles the main code. You already configured, right? Not to execute this, it will not execute, it will execute this and this. So pom.xml file contains build related configurations. So Maven first by default executes pom.xml file, and then based on the configurations, it will decide whether to execute all the steps or not. If you had not configured anything, it will by default run all these targets. Clear with this? If you don't have any questions, right, what I'll do, I'll clone a project. We have a small project now, okay? Flipkart project. I'll clone our project. I'll go and then run this command, and I'll show you all the steps. And then these steps results. Any questions before I show that to you? Any questions? Okay. So let us go to the first step, okay? Clone. I'm cloning the project now. So this is how you practice. Go to your Linux machine. Go to some directory, okay? You can go anywhere. I'll go to this directory. Some directory, your wish. I don't have anything here. So in real time, this is what you will be doing, okay? You will be having a Linux machines like this. You go to your Linux machine, and then you run this command. First step is clone, right? Git clone, https://github.com. This is the repository URL, okay? Nagesh Weekend slash flipkart.git. Remember this URL? And it is there in the notes, okay? Whatever steps I'm executing, all these steps are present in the notes, okay? So I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm first cloning the project. I know I'm repeating a lot, but why? Because this is very basic, okay? Very important thing. If you don't understand these things thoroughly, you will struggle because all other tools depend on this only. So you have to be very clear with these concepts. In case of any small doubt, raise your hand, ask your questions. Okay. I'm cloning the project. Think that you're working for a real-time project, Flipkart. So this is my, once you clone, you'll get the Flipkart, right? So go to the Flipkart. You see here. Under Flipkart, you have src and then form.xml file. Under Flipkart, you have src, form.xml file. Under src, tree dot tree command will show you the files and folders in a tree structure. So under Flipkart, you have form.xml file and then src. Two things. Under src, what is there? Okay, let me show you here. Source, this is what I cloned, correct? Under Flipkart, what is there? src, form.xml file. Done. Verify this now. src, form.xml file. If you go to src, what is there? Two folders, main, test. Main is there, test is there. Under main, what is there? Java. Under Java, what is there? Group ID, right? Remember, group ID means a reverse domain name. What is Flipkart domain name? Flipkart.com, correct? Reverse means com.flipkart. Flipkart.com, com.flipkart. Paytm.com, com.paytm. Amazon.com, com.amazon. So it is com, okay? Com.flipkart, correct? Flipkart app. If you go to Paytm, it will be like, com, Paytm, and then, yeah. So that is part of the group ID. Group ID means reverse domain name. See, you see 100.java fish. Since it's a sample, simple project, I have only one file called app.java. If you have app.java here you'll be having app test.java, right? So Flipkart src main src test. Go to test Java group ID com.flipkart and then app test.java. Here you have app.java, here you have app test.java. In real time, you may see hundreds, thousands of .java files. This is a simple file, so there is only one .java file. Clear with the project folder structure. And then there is a form.xml file. You want to see how this looks like. This is how form.xml file looks like. This is XML code, okay? Right. We'll talk about that later. First step. See, when you practice, right, you have to do the same thing like what I do in classroom. So when you practice, think that you are teaching, the concepts to somebody. What I have done, I have cloned this, right? Once I clone, I'm verifying everything, whether this folder structure is in place or not. I'm verifying, right? So you also have to verify so that you remember things. First step is done, clone. Then second step, what is that? See how simple it is. MVN install. What happens when I execute MVN install? It will execute all these steps. See this. First time when you execute MVN install, it will do, it will download a lot of things. It will download some dependencies, okay? So you will not see the output like this. Second time you run this MVN install again, you will see all these things. Let me show that to you. Don't worry about this for now. Okay. This is what happens, right? When I clone, correct? Now I'm executing the install command. See. Finally, it says build success. It executed all the steps. Maven install. You see what is it doing? Downloading, downloaded, downloading. So first time when you execute Maven install command, Maven downloads some dependencies. Think this way. Think that Maven is downloading its own files, not related to build. Maven's related files. First time only. Since it is downloading something, you need to have internet first time when you run the command. Only once it downloads Maven related, dependencies, Maven related installation files, Azure, that way. Maven related files, it will download first time. And second time when you run this command, it will not download because download is already there, no? So first time you need to have internet. See, it is doing something here. What is the first step? Test compile. Compile must be there on top. Compile, test phase. Package, it is creating the jar file in our case, or var file. And then install step. It is executing all the steps. Then finally it says build success. Okay, first time when you run this command, since it is downloading a lot of things, since it is downloading too many things, the output is not clear. So you run this command second time again. Run this command second time. Now it is not downloading, right? It is not downloading anything, right? So the output is very clear to you. So second time when you run, you observe this output. See what I'll do now. I'll again clone it. Okay. Git clone. I'm showing you from scratch. Git clone. We have this src .7 file. I'm running Maven install. It will not download now because download is already there. Okay. Few things. So second time when you run Maven install, things will be clear to you. Now let's see. See the first step, compile. What happens here? It compiles the main code. See this. There is one .java file, right? In our src main. It is compiling one code. Then it goes to test compile phase. These are all the default one, don't worry. Okay. Test compile phase. This is the internal one, not related to us, leave it. So compile phase, test compile phase. See, there is one .java file under test directory. It is compiling that file. Compile, test compile. Then it goes to test. Tests. See, it says you have one test case, 0 failures, 0 errors. If you have 100 test cases, you can tell Maven to skip, 10 and then run only 90. Time taken to execute test cases, 0.361 seconds. Done. During package phase, it will create either jar or var file, right? It is creating the jar file. And then it copies that jar or var file to where? .m2 directory. So that's what is happening here. Finally, it says build a success. You see the automation now? With simple command, right? By running a simple command, Maven install, Maven is compiling the main code, testing code, generating the reports, creating the jar or var file for us, and then it will copy jar or var file to .m2 directory. Maven is a build tool. It's a build automation tool. So once you run that command, now you check the output. Let's say the result of all these things. Okay. What happens during compile phase? It compiles the main code, correct? How many .java files we have in main? Main. Don't try to remember the folders. Okay. Here we have one .java file under main. One more thing. When you clone, you will get src pom.xml file. Once you run this mvn install command, this mvn install creates a directory called target, and it stores output files here. It stores built files here in target. Okay. For example, it is compiling one .java file. Where is the class file? Go to target. Main class files are stored here. Go here. See, app.class is there. In main, there is a .java file. Here, it is generating class file in target directory class. If you have 100 .java files, you will see 100 class files here. So inside the target, try to remember, inside the target, there is a directory called classes. Here, it stores all this main .java file related class files. Then test compile. What happens during test compile? It will compile the testing code, correct? So the testing code, testing compiled classes will be here, test classes. Go here. App test.class. It is there. Okay. Again, go to target. Then it will generate the reports, correct? Where are the reports stored? Surefire reports. Surefire reports. Click on that. Forget about this file. You will understand it later. .txt file. Open it. See the reports. Total number of test cases 1. 0 failures, 0 errors. You have not skipped any test cases. Time taken. Reports are generated. Then in this project, it is creating the jar file. Okay. So the jar file is there inside the target. Jar. Automatically it is created. Then it copies the jar file to .m2 directory. So I'll show that to you here. Okay, I'll show that to you later. Leave it. So you clone Flipkart project. You just run mvn install. Mvn install is doing a lot of things, and then this is the output you have. All output related files will be under target directory. So for example, I want to build again. I can remove the target directory. I'm removing the previously built files, right? I execute mvn install again. Again, it will create the target, and then it will store everything there. Target. So you have the main class files here. Test class files under this directory. There is a jar file, and you have the reports under Surefire reports. See the output now. I'm running mvn install again. Go to compile phase. What it says, nothing to compile, all classes are up to date, because you already executed mvn install before, right? There's a class file already. So if the class file is already there, it will not compile again. But if there are any changes in the .java file, it will compile. So nothing to compile because it is already compiled. If I remove the target directory now, again run mvn install, it will create the target file for target, and then it will have all the things. You see feel the automation. that Maven brings on the table. So end of the day, you just run mvin install, you will get the var file. Simple. But we have not created the var file yet. We are at a jar only. I'll explain var file creation later. Okay. So all these things are captured in the notes. Building a project using Maven. If you don't have Git installation yet, install Git. This is the repository URL, git clone flipkart.git. You all can clone the same repository. Then run a min install command. Observe all these things. Compile phase. I've given a high level explanation. What happens here, what happens here, and things like that. Okay. So read all this. I've given the explanation. And then verify built artifacts. Very simple. Clone a min install. Now it will generate the target directory, right? Artifacts means generated files. Like jar is called as an, you can call jar as an artifact and things like that. So go to target and then open each and every folder and then see. Classes contains main compiled code. Test classes contains testing class files. Reports will be here. And then under target directory, you will see a jar or var file. Remember, first time when you run mvin install command, it will download a lot of Maven related files. So you need to have an internet. And first time, don't try to, search for these targets or faces because a lot of output is more, right? Second time you run mvin install command, you can see these things clearly because you won't be having downloading, things. That's how you build a project. So it's a simple project now. Can you do this before next class? Building a simple project. Tomorrow, I mean, in the next class, okay? I'll explain what is there in that form.xml file, okay? How XML, if you have to write or modify form.xml files, how you write. It's a simple one, okay? So it's not coding. If you know like 2-3 things, you can write XML file. No worries on that. Tomorrow I'll explain the form.xml files. And then there is some topic called dependencies. Then web application build and deployment. Here I'm going to build the var file. This is again another project. And we'll discuss few concepts. If you feel that there is too many things to remember today, this slide is very important. If you feel a lot of things to remember, take this class again, watch the recording again, and then revise the concepts. That's it for today. Any questions you have?
I have one question, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is snapshot, sir?
Snapshot. If I explain now, people will get confused. Can you ask me after next class? Other?
Yeah, okay, sir.
I'll explain that. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Will there be class tomorrow?
No. Tuesday only. Today is Saturday. Tomorrow Saturday, no? Yeah. Any questions for me today?
Sir, can I call you after this class, sir? Morning I called you, you didn't pick the call.
Haven't call me at 10:15. Okay. If I don't pick the call, I'll call
Okay,
you.
sir. Okay, sir.
If I don't pick the call, just leave a message
sir.
in WhatsApp.
Sure, sir. 10:15 I will call. Okay, sir.
Yeah. And
Thank you, sir.
yeah, people who have not paid the full fees, you need to clear the complete fee by Tuesday, by next class. Okay. Note that. Any questions for me today? Second installment. Need to clear by Tuesday. That's a message I have from Aisha. Otherwise, I think if the fee is not cleared, maybe one day, a little bit here and there, but otherwise access will be revoked. Try to pay, okay? Not very strict, but clear it up. In case of anything, you can take time a little bit here and there, no issues. Okay, any other questions you have for me today? Thank you, everybody. Good night. Have a nice weekend.